We're back at it again with another. I don't know what we're going to call this. Is it a tape press play? It's going to be something. I don't know when this is going to
It's
run.
gonna be something.
Yeah.
I mean, it may go up on Saturday. It may go up before that. You never know. Um, I'm Leroy. That's Michael. Uh,
Hmm.
we trying boys. Nerdy Nerdy by Nature Productions.
We
The
got too many
Retry
titles.
channel. I mean,
Hmm.
one of them's gonna stick.
Yeah. All right.
Basically, this is what you got to do. Got to throw enough titles out there, get them all locked down,
Hmm.
then pick which one you like.
Okay.
Because you never
Okay.
know. I
You
mean,
never know. Fair enough.
you never know.
So on this episode, we're going to talk about Bad Boys Forever. That's what we're talking about.
Son, you know this made my week. We
I'm
got
sure you were so happy.
Bad Boys. When Will Smith said that we are in production for Bad Boys 4, what did I text y'all? I was like, I was right. I knew they were coming back. Oh,
I mean, they said they were coming back.
yeah, but after that slap, we didn't know if that were really coming back because remember everything got put on hold. So
I mean, I wasn't concerned that he wasn't going
I
to come back.
was, I was concerned they was not gonna make this movie, and I needed this movie. Matter of fact, I do have that movie over there. I do. I got that one.
Okay.
But no, this was a good week for me movie wise because you got Bad Boys 4 announced,
Hmm.
and um, friend of the show, James Gunn announced the new DCU plan.
Hmm.
And man, he got the internet a buzz. He got he
So
six.
comic book boy, tell me, are you excited about this?
Look, before we get into excited about it, he this is what we've been waiting for. James Gunn has said that I'm working on a plan with Peter Safran. He is
Hmm.
the new CEO of the head of DC Studios under Warner Brother Media. What is it? Warner Media, Warner Brothers Discovery, whatever that their name
Or
is.
does it? Who? It
And
don't matter.
he had been talking about that he had a plan, he had a vision, and if we would be hearing this vision pretty soon, because let's give some context. Last year, we got Henry Cavill come back as Superman and a cameo in Black Adam. And immediately after that, this deal was announced with James Gunn taking over DC. Then it came out that Patty Jenkins, Gal Gadot, and Henry Cavill would no longer be doing the projects that they'd be working on. The Man of Steel 2 was uh, axed. Henry Cavill will not be back as Superman. We're recasting that role according to James Gunn. Gal Gadot will not be back as Wonder Woman at this time, and Patty Jenkins will not be doing a Wonder Woman 3.
Hmm.
And basically, James Gunn is very outspoken on social media and basically told everybody what was going on. So this was the day everybody had been waiting for. What is the plan for DCU? It was supposed to be a 10-year plan. And let's be honest, we were very bullish on this because we had seen what had been happening with Warner Brothers and under David Zaslav's tenure. So, with that being said, I was very cautious about this. I am optimistic.
Hmm.
I've enjoyed what James Gunn has said. I've watched that video over and over again.
I
I
heard
mean,
it as we were about to start. I heard it playing in the background.
since it's come out, I've watched it 3 times every day.
Oh,
Like I've watched it 6 times.
do you think it's like? Are you looking for hidden messages? What are you getting at it watching it so many times?
I'm watching it for to see one to see how they edit it because the first time I watched it, it was like, okay, I finally get to see it, and then I watched it and I was like, oh, there's a lot of jump cuts in here. Not that it's bad, it just wasn't one full take. I noticed, and then a couple of little things he said that caught my attention was there was some release dates, um, basically the flow of what he was trying to get across, and I'm cautiously optimistic. There was a lot of things that made me say,
Hmm.
that's new. And I'm excited. I'm trying not to be too excited because Warner Brothers has let me down before.
Sure.
Um, and they made some announcements that I'm trying not to get excited about. I am so trying not to get excited about, but I'm so let's begin. So what did you
So
think?
uh, I thought it was cool. I like the idea. of him talking about this is part one of the thing of chapter one, and it's going to be
Hmm.
titled Gods and Monsters.
Yep.
I like the idea of having a theme for stuff. I was like, okay, you guys have some kind of idea what you're doing. I think that's cool. Um, I do like James Gunn as a filmmaker. I think he's good. So I'm excited to see what this is. Having said that, I don't know what that means. Like how much of a hold he and Peter Saffron, that's his name?
Peter Saffron.
Saffron, like the spice?
Saffron.
I guess so. Yeah. Okay. I wonder how much of a hold they're going to have over the movies and stuff. Are they going to be like micromanaging or not? Like I don't think so, but I don't know until we actually get to see what it's going to be.
Well, to a certain
Um,
extent, yeah, because I think unlike Kevin Feige, unlike a Kathleen Kennedy, um, or you know, let me take that back. No, no, no. Let me. So yes, unlike a Kevin Feige, let's take Marvel for example. Kevin Feige does not direct or write any of the Marvel properties.
mhm.
Kathleen Kennedy does not direct or write any of the Star Wars properties. She's an executive producer. Um, the head of whoever's in charge of Star Wars or whoever's in charge of that property, John Favreau and Dave Filoni do write and direct certain things, but this is a new thing. The head, the CEO, and the producer of these properties in DC are going to have a hand in either directing, writing, or maybe even starring in some of this stuff. James Gunn has said that he is writing. He wrote. We'll get into it. The Superman movie. He said he wrote the episodes for
Creature Commando.
Creature Commandos. Um, so that's two properties right there that he's directly involved in. So I don't know if it's fair to say it's micromanaging, but he's going to be directly involved that you don't see in other studio heads.
Right. Yeah. My not even concerned. I'm just curious for the things that he doesn't write. Is he going to micromanage that stuff?
I don't know. I mean, in his video, he did say, and he has an article that he says he's going to let hire the creatives, the storytelling is king, and that will be the driving force. Hire these people, let them do what they're good at, and we'll see. Um, you know, being a manager yourself and an executive producer, depending on the person, it is hard to just let them produce their show and
Sure.
not get into the and let them learn or fail, and especially when your name's attached to it. Now,
Hmm.
in this sense, his name's attached to it, and there's money involved.
Hmm.
So it's going to be interesting to see how this works. Because Kevin Feige, on the Marvel side of things, has had some public, uh, I don't want to say disputes, but Marvel has summarily let some people go on some properties
Sure.
because they didn't like the direction it was going in. Um, Edgar Wright from the first Ant Man. Um, we uh, we know Kenneth what is it, Brannigan?
Branagh.
Branagh did not come back to do the Thor
Are you
movies.
thinking of the guy from Futurama? Is that Brannigan?
Zach Brannigan. I wasn't,
Okay.
but I said his name like that. So I
Okay.
mean, Marvel's not perfect. So DC has had some stumbling blocks where they've, you know. So let's see where this goes. So
So before everything kicks off in this new DCU, they still have four more movies that are supposed to come out.
yep. Hmm.
They have the most recent one coming will be Shazam.
Shazam. Shazam is first.
Then you have the Flash.
Nope.
What is it? Blue Beetle.
Blue Beetle, and then Flash, I believe.
Okay. Um,
You know, I can tell you right now. Let me back this thing up.
and then you have Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. And when he
Yeah.
said that, he said that these movies are kind of working at the they
Oh,
kind of almost work in tandem with DCU because they kind of set each other up. They move from one to the other. And he
he
said
did.
something that Aquaman and the Last Kingdom will run into Superman Legacy.
He says that they do a very good job of setting up the new DCU. He says that Shazam and Blue Beetle are in their own. They're they're so far from what they're not attached to the current storyline that they can stand alone. And
Hmm.
I thought that was very interesting because in the article that the interview that he did, he talks about the fact that there was no leadership or vision for DCU. There were so many disparate creators involved that you had first it was Josh Whedon's Justice League. First it was Zack Snyder's Justice League. Then it was Josh Whedon's. Then it was Zack Snyder's Justice League again. Then you had you know David Ayer doing Suicide Squad. Then you had, in their vision, and then you had him coming in doing Suicide Squad again and Peacemaker, and so many different creatives doing so many different things. There was no continuity to it. He does a very good job of talking about that in the article that I read on Gizmodo, the interview, and he kind of talks about it here in this DC announcement. Um, I'm I've noticed that they are very particularly glowing of the Flash movie.
Hmm.
And I wonder, is that because that is what, because it is called Flashpoint, is that like they have to, because they need that movie. They need that movie to set them up for the future.
I think the interesting thing is they place so much emphasis on continuity and whatever. I think because it's been such a blow up and a shake up within DC and DCEU and all that stuff. I think if they just wanted to start over with a whole new Superman, I think they could have.
I mean,
I,
and they
like I
and
don't
they
think they
are.
needed to have a flashpoint to be like, oh, we're resetting stuff. I really think they could have just started and be like, now it's new. I think
See,
you could have done so much marketing, whatever, that I I think that would have worked because everything beforehand has been so clumsily handled and not handled with the smooth touch that people wouldn't have cared personally.
I agree, but however, comma, and we talked about this before we got on air, and then after this we can get into the actual slate and like we can talk about what each property means and we're going forward. I don't know what the plan is as far as like, and I say that as we talk about the plan. I don't know what's in that Flash movie that makes them say this movie, because we talked about before we came on here the Batgirl movie. I'm not a fan of how they continue to criticize that movie. The new criticism is that the movie was first mentioned for and slated for HBO Max,
Hmm.
and then they gave it a bigger budget. They wanted to do a theatrical release, and then as they looked at it, we cannot release this movie theatrically because the scale, it wasn't scale for theatrical. But then they also mentioned something that was very telling. They couldn't release it because then it didn't allow them to have tendrils. The Batgirl movie had tendrils that they did not want to touch upon yet in their new vision for the DCU. And I thought that was very telling. And again, I don't know what's going on. I want to know what's going on in this Flash movie, but I don't like that they keep knocking this Batgirl movie that we'll never get to see. And it's easy to talk trash about something no one will ever get to see. Um, because to me, I'm like, you guys release a lot of stuff that probably wasn't that great. And but I understand releasing that now may not work for your future plans. And to
Hmm.
me, just say that. To
Sure.
me, say, hey, we're shelving this because we want to use half of the stuff that they have here in a different way, and we can't do that if we do with this movie. Just say that. But to continue to knock it and criticize it, that's something that I'm not a fan of. But I am a fan of this new lineup they have. So let's get to it. First in the lineup of this new DCU is
I don't know. You tell me.
Superman Legacy. I thought you were listening.
I That's not like the first. Didn't Creature Commandos come out before Superman Legacy?
Creature Commandos comes out first, but I'm doing movies. I'm starting with the movies. I'll get to television later because I think
Okay.
I think the television, the Creature Commandos is the first property, but I say let's start with the movies because to me that's the bigger deal. Um,
Okay.
you've got
Superman Legacy, written by Gunn.
yep, and I think that's whoo that's if you were going to pick one of the hardest things to do, it that it this is one. And the next one is two. Superman Legacy to me is probably going to be one of the hardest things to do. It
And
shouldn't
that
be
comes out in July
2025.
2025. That seems so far away, but it's really only 2 years.
Yep.
I'm wondering. I think I saw somewhere the plan is to have maybe two movies and two TV series every year. Is that what I
hmm
saw?
hmm
Okay.
I
Um,
believe that. I think I agree with you.
yeah. So, what does Superman Legacy mean to you? Does that mean it's not an origin story, right? Like
Nope.
Superman is already kind of established. What
Yep.
are we expecting in Superman Legacy, or
No
what are
idea.
you? Okay, what do you want in it?
And see, that's the thing. So James Gunn talks about that. This is the one that kicks off. You got Creature Commandos, and the reason why I didn't start with like in the road that he went into, because to me, the movies are the linchpin. The TV series are ancillary, kind of like um, and I don't want to use Marvel as an example, but I'm trying to think of somebody else that has TV series. Star Wars.
Hmm.
Star Wars is a perfect example. These TV series are great, but the movies is where it's at. That's what. And so here's the write up. This is the only project with a release date, July 11, 2025, written by Gunn. Will follow Kal-El as he reconciles his extraterrestrial origins with his human family and upbringing. Um, that's it. Um, I I want Superman, the closest thing to what Superman is for people to understand, and I'm going to use a Marvel character, is Captain America. The person who represents in the MCU is Captain America. The I'm not you no you move, I'm not moving. Those old school family values, the traditional, you do the thing that's right even when it's hard. That is Superman. The difference is he has the power of God,
Hmm.
and he chooses to not use it to take over the world, but to be a shining light, a shining example of what we can be. And he struggles every day to not overexert himself, not to do too much, but to allow humanity to thrive as he continues his journey figuring out who he is. Um,
Are there any comic books that you think they're going to base it
so
off
he so
of?
he's tweeted, he's shown us Kingdom Come. People have speculated different series, Superman for all seasons, Superman Birthright. Uh, I'm trying to think of what some other ones. This is the one that I think is I don't. This is the one I think is the hardest to do because everybody has this idea of Superman in their head,
Hmm.
whereas Batman can be so many different things depending on who the director is, and your Superman is kind of like the leader of DC to a certain example. He is that everyone looks to him as, ooh, that's Superman. Oh, and like heroes revere him. Villains are scared of him. Villains respect him even though they're scared of him. And there's like, and I want to say this now. Do you remember back in the day when like people talked about the president, like, ooh, the president's here, and how
Hmm.
everybody felt like that? That's how Superman is. Like when Superman showed up, even villains were like, oh, my bad, Superman. I mean that for real. And it's like he has this reverence to him.
Hmm.
And so I would like to see what James Gunn done. He's a great writer. So let's see what this is. Um, but I will say he is one of the. It's hard to get a Superman movie right. A lot of people have tried.
Uh, so, with you saying that, how many Superman movies do you like, and how many do you not like that have been out?
Um, my love. I enjoy the first one. Um, matter of fact, we had a panel
Hmm.
with the Nickelodeon and the University of South Carolina, where we talked about the first Richard Donner Superman. I like the first two Supermen that Richard Donner did. Um, Two is a little hodgepodgey for me,
Hmm.
but I love Man of Steel. You know me, I have been a Cavalite since day one. I really I go back and watch that trailer for Man of Steel once a week, probably all three of them. I love the Man of Steel. I like that idea. So, um, those are my top three. I did like Brandon Routh. I did like
Superman
Superman
Returns.
Returns. Yeah, I did. I
Yeah.
enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty cool. Um, I thought Kevin Spacey as Lex Luthor was hilarious when he was like wrong. I just I did enjoy it. It was basically a remake of the original Superman, but I still liked it. So, um, we're not gonna talk about the other ones.
Okay, answers that question. All right, let's move it along. So, and I'm hoping this list is the same. I don't know if IGN did their list in order, but what I have next for movies would be The Authority.
Yes.
Um,
Now, buddy, whoo, let me tell you, outside of Marvel Comics, outside of the X-Men, the Wildstorm characters are my number two favorite characters in universe of all time.
mhm.
Jim Lee created, the Wildstorm characters, I love infinitely. When I tell you that, here's the thing: the Authority is the linchpin for everything we have seen in the MCU. The Authority is the beginning. So if you like the boys, the Authority did it first. Mark Miller, Frank Quitely, and Dustin Nguyen, um, Warren Ellis, Brian Hitch, Paul Neary, the Authority. These are some bad mofos.
Mhm.
They're not the good guys. They're just the guys you. They're the they're the they're the best of the worst. And when I say that, they're born out of a series called Stormwatch. So Stormwatch Final Orbit basically comes out of a government sanctioned superhero team led by a man by the name of Henry Bendix. And they leave basically government, a UN collaboration, and they basically get tired of the world being effed up and they decide to fix it by
Mhm.
any means necessary. When I mean by any means necessary, Malcolm X would have said that's a little too far.
Okay.
when I tell when I tell you, if you like the boys, go pick up the Authority. And so when I say that the everything that we have, you owe the MCU to the Authority because the characters that were created in Stormwatch that begot the Authority, Mark Miller, Frank Quitely, when they left the Authority, they went to Marvel. Marvel decided, what would the Avengers look like if we rebooted them in modern day? That was the Ultimates. The Ultimates was where you got Nick Fury looking like Samuel L. Jackson,
Mhm.
the Captain America, the Iron Man, all of those storylines of the MCU, like the updated versions of them, you got that from the Ultimates, and that was because they did the Authority. They still had that kind of edge to them. They weren't your father's Avengers. They weren't even called the Avengers. Um, so I say that this is the most intriguing one because the Wildstorm characters were owned by Jim Lee over at Image. They were bought. Jim Lee sold them to DC. So then
Mhm.
they started integrating them into the DC universe. Um, some of the characters are based on DC characters. So you have Apollo and Midnighter, who are basically LGBTQ couple based on Batman and Superman. Apollo is Superman. Midnighter is a crazy Batman who kills, who has a supercomputer in his head that can plot out every move you would make.
Okay.
And when I tell you he is the most vicious thing in the world, he is the most vicious thing in the world. Then you have Jenny Hawksmoor. You have a man. by the name of is he on this one? Is he on the cover?
Hey, nerd, we only got an hour.
Anyway, um, the reason why I say that this is the most intriguing because if I would say a movie that Zack Snyder would direct and should direct, it is The Authority. The what he was trying to do with Justice League, in my opinion, is what he should have done with The Authority.
Okay.
And so that's what so when I say this is the most intriguing, because I'm like, how do you start with Superman, the Boy Scout, and
Hmm.
then do The Authority?
Well, I mean, is that the whole thing of the gods and monsters? Superman being the god, these people being the monsters,
So
or
here's the thing. Superman in the current run of his comics teams up with a version of the Authority. So
okay?
so that's here's the question. What iteration of these characters are we going to get? Are we going to get the Stormwatch, the characters born out of Stormwatch who leave? Because keep in mind, the Authority takes over the fucking world at one point. The Authority says, "You guys are not running the planet good enough. You all work for us."
Hmm.
And then the United States, with some other countries, decides to take out the Authority and sets up their own fake authority. And they do some righteous, torturous shit to these people. And then the Authority says, "Oh, you fucked up," and then takes over the world again. So that's why I said, like, how do you go from the Boy Scout to these dudes,
Hmm.
these guys and girls? So it to me, it's the most intriguing because then it opens the door for so many other characters in the Wildstorm universe. Do you do Wildcats? Do you do Sleeper? Do you do Global Frequency? And these books are so interesting. So I recommend to people go pick up these comics because to me, some of these comics from the '90s and the 2000s or the aughts, whatever they call them, go pick up Global Frequency, Sleeper. Imagine a superhero who goes undercover in a supervillain a supervillain uh, criminal enterprise. That's Sleeper, and then he goes so deep undercover he doesn't know if he's a good guy or a bad guy or not.
Hmm.
Global Frequency is 1,000 agents on the frequency.
Hey, nerd, stay on track.
I can't because
I
here's the thing. That's what's when you mention the Authority, everybody's like, which Authority characters? How many? Because there's so many. There's so much lore to that side of it. So like, how do you plan to pull it off? Let's get to the next
So
one.
is it like the same way now that you say that? Is it like when James Gunn announced he was doing a Suicide Squad movie
Yep.
and people were
Mm-hmm.
like, which characters type thing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Because it's like the Authority has the roster of the Authority had had a wide variety of characters, and their backstories ties into so many other characters. So it's like, are you doing the new 52 Authority? Are you doing the Jim Lee Wildstorm Authority before? Or are you doing the recent Authority that teams up with Superman, who
Hmm.
isn't that terrible?
Okay. Next movie I see is The Brave and the Bold. DC will introduce its Batman and Robin in this unusual father-son story inspired by Grant Morrison's comic series.
This is going to be the most fun because this is, you know who Damian Wayne is, right?
Hmm.
That's that's what the Brave and the Bold is. Batman and Robin is Bruce Wayne, his son Damian Wayne, born from Talia al Ghul, grandfather Ra's al Ghul. He's an assassin from the League of Assassins and their adventures.
Okay.
It's the first time we're going to see Damian Wayne on camera, on screen.
Has
And
James Gunn said what the ratings for these movies are going to be?
nope.
Okay.
And so but he did say this is a funny thing. He said Damian is his favorite Robin, and he is an assassin. So the Aiden Gallagher watch has started because if you want to know what Damian Wayne is like, number 5, Umbrella Academy, and people are like, "That's Damian Wayne. That's
Hmm.
literally Damian Wayne, a know-it-all child who is a killer."
Okay. Uh, so why is this one the most fun for you?
Because it's the most fun because you're getting a Robin, and it's not Dick Grayson, it's not um, who eventually becomes Nightwing. It's not Jason Todd who becomes Red Hood. It's none of those Robins. It's his actual son,
Hmm.
which then opens the door for Taliogo showing up, the League of Assassins. Professor Pig is introduced in this line. It's the most fun because it has that dynamic that we have not seen with Batman in a while. The brooding Batman we've gotten, but the brooding Batman with his son. And here's the thing: do you know how like you watch Batman and you're like, oh, he's intense.
Hmm.
Imagine Batman being the good cop to Damien's Robin, who's the bad cop.
Sure.
That's why I said it's going to be the most fun.
Okay.
You're going to have a 10-year-old who's crazy and insane, an assassin, and the dude who dresses up as a bat is the sane one.
We have Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow is
That
next.
that caught me off guard because that book just came out. That's Tom King, and um, that book just came out. Supergirl is different than Superman in the fact of Superman. Kal-El was sent to Earth as a baby. He didn't
Hmm.
grow up on Krypton. He didn't know anything about Krypton. Everything he learned through the forces of solitude and hollow crystals. Supergirl, Kara, grew up in a domed city that when Krypton exploded, went away. In that domed city, she had a life. She had friends. She had family. As the dome deteriorated, everybody she knew died. So,
Hmm.
unlike Superman, who knew nothing of his history, nothing of his heritage, she watched everything she knew disintegrate in front of her. They had enough resources, her parents did, to send her to Earth because her family, cousins, knew of Jor-El's plan. So
Hmm.
they were able to send her. So she's a little bit jaded. She isn't the Boy Scout. She tries to live up, and keep in mind, she came after Superman did. So when
Hmm.
she gets here, Superman's already a thing. And so she tries to live up to that huge shadow that he casts. And
And is
sometimes
she older than Superman?
that's the question.
Okay.
Because again, she shows up as a teenager.
Hmm.
He's already full grown. So like how does that happen? This story basically sets her up as she can't get drunk on Earth. So she leaves, it's her 21st birthday. She leaves and goes to a planet that has a red sun. When she gets there, she gets drunk. She's with Crypto, and because she's vulnerable under a red sun, she meets a girl who wants to hire her as to kill a man who killed her father.
Hmm.
And it's their adventures to track down this multi intergalactic criminal and what happens and the adventures they go on. It's a very high-minded sci-fi story. They go to different planets, they meet different types of people. It's a very good book. Tom King. I recommend it. I wish it's the two issues are in the room, but my wife was asleep, so I have it. I've read it. Hopefully, this announcement will get it a hardcover edition. That's what I'm hoping.
Last movie I see up is Swamp Thing.
This one I don't know much about because I so Swamp Thing has had a movie from the 80s that used to play on TNT and TBS that we all
I
know,
do. I remember that. Yeah,
and then it had a CW show.
that I
It
heard
got
was pretty good.
it was pretty good. Remember, it got
But
canceled halfway through, and then
yeah.
people were like, "This is good," but again, this is the back when Warner Brothers didn't know what they were doing.
Hmm.
But this is supposed to be a horror movie.
Hmm.
So I wonder how that's going to play. And James Gunn said it does tie into the whole God and Monsters thing, but he said this one stands outside of the DCU. So I'm
Okay,
in
so one,
now.
two, three, four,
There's
five movies.
five
Okay.
movies. So what's your take on this? So we did the movie slate. What's your take? So you see this?
It's interesting just because we don't know what it is. I think it's cool that it's kind of different. Um, so we have a Superman, we have a Batman,
Mhm.
we don't have a Wonder Woman,
No.
and I don't know a lot about comics. I know you have the Trinity,
Yep.
so I'm wondering like, where is Wonder Woman? I
Now I
don't think James Gunn would try and make Supergirl the third person in the
nope.
Trinity. I don't think he would do that. So
I
I'm curious, like where that person is.
I know where that person is, and that's what we're going to get to a little bit later on when we talk about television series. But here's my question: what's the one thing that stands out to you about this lineup? Because you're right, we do have a Batman, we have a Superman. What about this lineup like says, huh? Like what catches your eye when this was announced? What it made you say? Because we're nerds, we're going to go see them in theater, time permitting. But what are you like? Oh, I like that idea.
Well, I have a question. Static Shock, is that a Wildstorm character?
No, that is a uh, miles
Miles something.
milestone. My
Milestone. Oh, okay.
my if you wouldn't have asked me, I would have known. Um,
Okay.
milestone. I think it's milestone. But
That
Static
sounds right.
Shock. So Static Shock, Icon, Rocket, Syndic. What is it? What hardware? Those are all Dwayne McDuffie created these characters. More urban. They were black. More city. Icon is basically like Superman, but he's actually an alien who's been living here the whole time. And Rocket is like his Robin, a girl from the hood who figured out, oh shit, you ain't from here.
Hmm.
Um, hardware, think of Gangster Iron Man, and Static Shock. We all know who Static Shock is.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
go ahead.
I was hoping that what that was, but since it's not, it's kind of whatever. For me, the one that sticks out is probably Batman and Robin,
Hmm.
just because we've seen the Batman and Robin dynamic in so many different ways, whether it was like the old serial TV show in the '60s or whatever, in the '70s. Yeah, like as corny as it was, it's fun to watch now and just think about to a simpler time. We've had different Robins, whether it was
Chris
Chris
O'Donnell.
O'Donnell. I guess it was always Chris O'Donnell in the movies, huh?
Hmm.
Yeah.
But we did get
Um,
the Robins in the Batman animated series.
right. So I think it'll be interesting to see how this guy, who's typically a loner, what does he do to be a dad figure?
Hmm.
Um, and this is a it's not a one to one, but it does kind of remind me of the new God of War games with Kratos trying to figure out how to be a dad who's normally a loner and how does he care for his son Atreus.
And so the funniest thing that you mentioned about that is so we in the movies they've always portrayed Batman as a loner. He doesn't have this family. And we know in the comics the Bat family is fucking huge. Like there are more Bat family members than any other. The only family that rivals Batman's family and the characters that he has is the X-Men.
Hmm.
Like as far as like because you got to think about it. There's Batman, there's Alfred, Tim Drake, um, you've got Damien, you've got Jason Todd, you've got I'm trying to remember Dick Grayson, Nightwing. So those are your Robins. Then you've got Gordon. Then you've got Gordon's daughter, Barbara Gordon. Then you've got spoiler Stephanie Brown. Then you've got Cassandra Cain, who is another Batgirl. Then you've got Luke Fox, who is Lucius Fox's son, who is Nightwing. No, uh, is it Nightwing? What is his name?
That
And
doesn't
so,
sound right.
huh?
That doesn't sound right.
Batwing or whatever the armored Batman, whatever. Then you
Black
have
Bat.
Black Bat. Let's no, because there's another Black Bat. His brother Jace is
Oh.
another Black Batman.
Mhm.
So then let's take it further. Then you have the Signal, which is Duke, whose parents were hit with Joker toxin, who becomes one of the Robins because there's a Robin, a bunch of the Robin. The Robin means something for the kids of Gotham. So a bunch of kids dress up as Robin and try to take on Gotham's crime. He's the one who makes it. The rest of them don't make it for different reasons. And he's the one who's taken under Batman's wing. But he's the one who fights during the daytime. That hence why he's called the Signal. His costume is yellow. Like there's so many different. Then you got Huntress. Like there's so many different characters in the Bat family that spill over. So you're right. So it's funny you mentioned that because you're right. We always see Batman as a loner. We always and here's Batman like, how do I parent a teenage assassin, a
Hmm.
prepubescent killer, not someone who hasn't killed before, who has killed multiple people. Like,
Hmm.
and not only does he killed multiple people, he knows he is the legacy of Ra's al Ghul and the detective and his mother, Talia al Ghul. He's spoiled.
Sure.
Imagine a child killer who is spoiled.
You mean like Jaden Smith was a killer?
Jaden Smith ain't got this kind of money. Imagine, because again, and no knock on Jaden Smith, love you. You ain't got billionaire money. That's what I'm trying to say. And not just billionaire money, that's on your dad's side. Your granddad is an international, centuries old terrorist.
Hmm.
Yeah, we ain't never seen this character before.
So then, yeah, we're running out of time. We got to keep going.
We ain't run out of
Uh,
time. We got all the time in the world. Time is relative, baby.
no, I'm done in 20 minutes, sir. I got stuff I got to do.
Give these people what they
Uh,
want. They want more of us.
okay, well, then if that's the case, we got to do it live. Otherwise, I got stuff to do.
What you got?
Um, so okay, newly announced movies.
Hmm.
Is there like a bow to that for you, or do you want to just segue into the TV shows, or like?
I think he was. So here's the thing. He said this is an 8 to 10 year plan. Here's the first chapter.
Mhm.
We talked about two movies, two TV shows per year. First one started in 2025. So we got to get this slate, these four movies out of the way, and
Five.
then we no four.
Oh, you're talking about the ones that aren't
Mhm.
part of the thing. Okay, got
So
it.
we get these four movies out of the way, and then we can get to this. Um, I'm excited to see because they're being very deferential to what came before.
Hmm.
They're honoring their, except for Batgirl, but they're being very nice. They're not calling it shit. They're saying, "Hey, this just didn't work." I want to see, once you get that out of the way, how do you ramp up getting people excited for this? That's what I'm excited for. Because again, no disrespect to Marvel, the MCU, you have two of the most recognizable characters on the planet, Batman and Superman,
Hmm.
and that franchise failed. So how do you do it? I'm
Right.
interested.
Okay, newly announced TV series.
Creature Commandos. James Gunn said he wrote all the episodes. They're already done.
Hmm.
One of the things I don't know if you picked up on, he said all of this is connected. So if you star in a movie, you will do the animation voice. He said that we will do, if you are the leap from animation to live action. So
Hmm.
that means he's making that statement now that all of this is connected. I like that. Now, with that being said,
I don't.
that's where I was getting to. Go now. Go ahead.
Well, for me, it's just like in a perfect world, that sounds awesome.
But
But as we've talked about before, or as I've talked about before,
Invincible.
not everybody can be. Well, no, not everybody can be a voice actor. Just
Hmm.
because you're an amazing TV or movie actor
Hmm.
doesn't mean you can be a voice actor.
Invincible. What
So
if?
yeah, so if that takes away from the performance, I'm kind of like, yeah. And I kind of like the idea of just finding the right person who can do the voice.
Now, what I will say is I like that idea in theory. Hopefully, they will do a better job of training these actors and actresses to do voiceover work, because you're right, it is a skill. But I do like the idea because then it lets you know that if you're playing this character, there's some longevity to it. You are this character. You are going to be this character in different parts of our universe.
Did I see somewhere like they were talking about they were signing actors to like 10-year contracts or something?
I I
Or
mean
super, I don't know how, but super long contracts.
but let's be honest, this is exactly what you have to do if you're going to have characters who make the leap from television to animation to movies.
Sure.
You have to sign them to this type of deal. And this is exactly what Marvel did when hey man, you got 6 movies,
Hmm.
you know. Um, I think it is interesting that Waller is being set up as because this is another group of criminals that Waller's going to be in charge of. So I like that.
Yeah. So Creature Commandos. What can you tell us about Creature Commandos?
Nothing.
Okay.
It's I mean it's just James Gunn and let's see. And here's the
Is that
thing.
something you read before?
I don't remember that book. I don't have that here on my stack of books, my
Okay.
props. But James Gunn wrote it, so I'm interested to see what he does with this because we've seen what he did before with some from characters that you didn't know anything about.
All right. So next up, Waller. I'm excited for this just
Yes,
because, yeah, Viola
Viola
Davis.
Davis.
Just go out and do your thing.
Yep,
Um,
and it brings back the team from Peacemaker.
and I wonder how that's going to be. Is that going to lead into like another season of Peacemaker, or is it going to be? I
Who
mean, who
knows?
knows?
It's Team
Because
Peacemaker. So
because we know there is a second season of Peacemaker, but that wasn't announced
n-
with this
good
stuff.
call. Good call. Nope. So that means so we're gonna get back. Danielle Brooks will probably be back. Jennifer Holland, who plays Emilia Harcourt. Um, John Inco Economist. Steve Agee. He doesn't have the beard in this picture. So that's three people that we know will be back. John Cena, we know is probably coming back. And Freddie Stoma, who played Vigilante. So that core group is probably going to be back in this Waller show.
Yeah, and I wonder. So the thing that, and I'm reading this line from IGN, starring Viola Davis, the series features Team Peacemaker and will be written by Crystal Henry and Jeremy Carver. I'm excited because when you say Jeremy Carver, I automatically think of
Supernatural.
Supernatural.
And they made
Um,
he made a point to mention Supernatural too when he said his name.
so if it's going to be like a modern take on like an X Files type spooky horror thing, I think that's cool. Like Supernatural was the one type of thing that I watched all the time. I watched all the episodes of Supernatural except for maybe two or something. But I just like that idea of okay, what is this type of monster of the week? Is it serial?
I
Is it
don't
going to be what? I don't know.
I don't think it is. I think it's going to be I think it's going to be a begrudging relationship that we got a glimpse of in the Suicide Squad
Hmm.
with her working with this team that she really doesn't want to work with. Because remember, this is the same team that outed her at the end of Peacemaker.
I mean, this is 18 that knocked her out.
Because
Yeah.
remember, they knocked her out and then they got this shit assignment
Hmm.
because they
Well, I
weren't.
mean, yeah, but I feel like at some point when she gave him this shit assignment, I feel like they're like, all right, we're good.
Really, they outed her. They remember her own daughter.
Yeah.
They outed her, so I'm quite sure she's not sitting there thinking these are my star employees.
Yeah. I mean,
When
maybe she begrudgingly
think
respects
about
that.
this,
She's like, oh yeah, I got
think
you.
about this. You're at home, you're drinking some fruit punch or whatever. You're playing Horizon Zero Dawn or Persona, and your name scrolls across CNN.
Hmm.
And one of your least favorite producers snitches on you. You go want to work with that producer again on Monday morning?
I mean, I burn them at that point. I burn them down.
That's what I'm saying, man. I don't think I think this is going to be a interesting dynamic because we saw where the Peacemaker ended, and I don't think this is going to be a kumbaya moment. I think this might be a I'm on the run type shit, and I
Uh,
need to call the only people who I can call.
Booster Gold. I've always heard that name. I've never read a book of his, but I like the idea of what Booster Gold represents. This guy who's kind of a loser from the future is like, I'm going to go back to the past and be a hero there. I think that sounds funny to me.
And he's not a loser in the past, but he's not exactly respected.
Hmm.
Think Star Lord. That's Booster Gold.
Okay.
Yep. That's the best thing I could say. Think Star Lord. Think Johnny Bravo.
Okay.
Think Johnny Bravo. The bravado that comes with that's Booster Gold.
So as we're talking about these shows, in your mind, are you seeing, oh, this is how things are going to tie in together, or is it just so they're just such small ideas at the moment. You can't see like a bigger
No,
picture
this
yet.
is so if they do so I don't know if you've noticed something that when he did this video, we talked about this when we did our breakdown of which streaming service would you keep. You notice most TV shows that he mentioned or streaming shows that he mentioned, he tried to make a connection with a streaming show from HBO Max that you knew. When he mentioned Green Lanterns, he mentioned True Detective. When he mentioned Paradise Lost, what did he mention? Game of Thrones. He
Hmm.
tried to make those connections with known properties on HBO Max, which let me know two things. One, they want you to understand that they are going to invest in HBO Max, which means they're going to invest in these properties. And it also made me realize in order to do this right, HBO Max has to succeed and vice versa. These need to succeed so HBO Max can succeed, and we're
Hmm.
getting we haven't given up on this service. That's the thing that I notice the most out of these. So I have no idea how good or bad these are going to be, but I do know that they're going to put their best foot forward because they have a bad reputation because they canceled so much stuff, and a lot
Hmm.
of creatives are probably pissed off. And James Gunn is like, yo, in order for this to work, you need to invest. So
Hmm.
I'm giving you the slate of what we need to do, and it's a symbiotic relationship. But I did notice that we're going to get to what's the next one. It is with lanterns.
Lanterns.
He noticed he mentioned it's a terrestrial show. It's going to be multiple lanterns, but he likened this to True Detective,
Hmm.
and
John Stewart and Hal Jordan.
I thought that was very interesting that he brought that up.
Any other thoughts on lanterns?
Um, this is to me a very interesting concept because how do you do space cops on Earth? Because that's what this is. This is space cops on Earth.
Yeah, I like the idea of a buddy comedy, or not even buddy comedy, just like the duo type of thing.
I don't think this
Whether
is a
it's a
comedy. this
um,
is when he because think about it. He mentioned True Detective. You remember that first season of True Detective?
yeah. I
Do you
mean, some
remember?
people would say the second season of True Detective was laughably bad. So I don't
Whoa,
know.
whoa, whoa! You take that back. I like the second season of True Detective.
Okay,
I
you
liked it.
can.
I
Some
liked it.
people didn't.
I agree. I understand. However, I wouldn't think what all right did to Woody Harrelson's wife was comedy.
I mean, it is what it is.
So yeah,
Uh, Paradise Lost.
what did he like in that? Do you remember what he liked in that one too?
I mean, you already said it. Game of Thrones.
Yep.
Set in Themyscira, home of the Amazons and birthplace of Wonder Woman, this drama focuses on the genesis and political intrigue of an island of all women.
I think this is the prequel for Wonder Woman.
Hmm. And is that one? So I'm looking at IGN stuff. The only one they show is animated is Creature Commandos.
Yes.
Everything else is live action.
Yep.
Hmm.
That we
Interesting.
know of so far. He's the only
Sure.
one he's mentioned is animation is Creature Commandos. Now, that's not saying one of these can't end up being animation, but they from everything he said, all of this is live action. And when you liken something to Game of Thrones, that to me says it. Each of these properties, because of what they are going to be so different. So it's almost going to me, this is setting up kind of like what the MC do with their TV shows.
Mhm.
You ain't got to watch all of it if you don't want to. You can just watch whatever one you like. So Werewolf by Night which was a horror element.
Mhm.
Um, you had your kid show with Miss Marvel. You had your cerebral show with Moon Knight. You had your comedy with She Hulk. Let's take that to the DC. Your comedy show is probably going to be Booster Gold and the adventures he gets into. Your Game of Thrones, your serious, you know, backstabbing, conniving. How do we make this work? Paradise Lost, which I'm calling right now as the prequel to after a couple of seasons, you're going to get Wonder Woman. I think that's where you're going. That's how That whole show I think is going to lead into the birth of Wonder Woman.
Okay.
Um, your True Detective slash Green Lantern show is your serious. We take like True Detective slash Green Lantern is going to be your Andor
Hmm.
is to Star Wars. It's going to be serious. It's going to tackle so many different issues and things that you've never seen before, in my opinion, in a comic book show. Um, your Creature Commandos, fun, cursing, drunkenness, violence, everything James Gunn is good at. Waller, I think, is going to be your I'm on the run, or I got to reform this agency, and the only people I can trust or work with are the people who screwed me over and put me in this situation to begin with. That's what I think
Okay.
the slate is.
Okay. So we got, was that 5 movies, 5 shows?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. And he said that's only chapter one. So we got
Gods and
much more to
monsters.
come. Gods and
Because,
Monsters.
because there's a through line, he said, that all of this touches. And whatever's going on, the True Detective show is the one. Green Lanterns is the one where they start to see this mystery unraveling.
Okay. The things that we talked about, the 4 movies that are coming out, that are going to come out before this starts, really. We also have, IGN does also list Peacemaker season 2. We know we have Joker,
Mm-hmm.
Folie à Deux, Jux. I don't know how you pronounce it. I don't know. Joker 2, Batman 2.
Mm-hmm.
And then supposedly we still have Pennyworth are still going. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, Pennyworth is still on HBO Max.
Superman and Lois is still going.
Yep. Now
And
after that, keep going because
and Gotham Knights.
yes, that's the new show, not based on the game, but basically is the same thing as the game. One thing he didn't mention. Now it could show up in chapter two, because this is chapter one. It could show up later on. Remember, Michael B. Jordan was supposed to be working on a Black Superman property, and David Zaslav and them said that is still in production. They did not cancel that, but he did not mention that in
Hmm.
this. So it's going to be interesting to see if it keeps going. Michael B. Jordan hadn't said anything. Nobody said anything. But the last time we heard, that's still going on. So I'd like to see how that ties into it. Um, I I caught that there was no Wonder Woman, but I feel like the Paradise Lost is going to be the prequel to Wonder Woman. I think this Paradise Lost is going to be set up hundreds of years before any of this stuff happens. Whereas
Sure.
everything that's coming out now is going to be pretty much the same time frame,
Hmm.
continuity wise. Paradise Lost, I think, is going to have like all of these little tendrils that you will see later on that informs us how this universe got created.
One thing that he talked about, I think, is kind of cool and kind of everything is connected. So you have your TV shows, you have your movies. He also said video games,
Yes.
which is
Rest in peace, Kevin
interesting.
Conroy.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. I was listening to a podcast that might have been like Podcast Beyond on IGN, and the thing they brought up is it's going to be tough to have movies connected because or games connected because the development cycle for games nowadays are like 4 years, 5 years. So how does that work? Are these aren't going to necessarily be games that are one-to-one recreations of the movies, but maybe they're more games that are here's a side story you didn't know about.
Yes. Yes. I think that makes more sense. And honestly, if you think about it, it makes more sense because the only game they have announced that's coming out that's going to tie into this universe is Wonder Woman. There's no other game that's announced after the Suicide Squad kills the Justice League.
Do we know Wonder Woman ties into this universe?
It has to because it comes out after.
I mean, it don't have to at this point.
I would say it would because if James Gunn is telling us right now in January that all of the games that we have coming out and Wonder Woman has no release date, it
Hmm.
just has a flashy whatever. I would say that unless they scrap it,
Hmm.
I would say that James Gunn has plans for this to tie into his Gods and Monsters. And I I'm interested to see how this works, but I will say this. I'm glad that they're doing it because that means we're going to get DC games. Whereas I like the idea of getting that a company is saying our universe is going to be so connected that our games matter.
Hmm.
Because all along before, up until what, only a handful of comic book games are actually any good. So
Sure.
what? Your Marvel versus Capcom, your Injustice, and your Arkham Knight. That's pretty much it. I mean, your Arkham series. You had your Spider-Man Maximum Carnage and your Spider-Man games were okay. And then you had this last Spider-Man game in Miles Morales. But honestly, can you say any of these other comic book games were any good?
Yeah.
Which ones?
I really like the Marvel Ultimate Alliance games.
They were okay. They weren't bad. They weren't terrible.
Yeah.
I'll say they weren't terrible. But I mean, so that to me, the idea that they're saying, hey, we're going to put forth the effort to make these games tie into whatever we're doing, I like that idea because that means they're not going to be trash cash grabs.
Hmm.
We're not going to get another Marvel's game if, on the DC side. We may get one on the Marvel side, what Crystal Dynamics did, but I think they're saying, hey, we're going to take a look at our properties and say the next game that we make that comes out is going to be a polished game that fits into this universe. And I like that idea.
Okay. Closing thoughts.
Um, I like the fact that James Gunn talked about the comics and he talked about being a fan of these characters. Um, Hopefully, with this announcement and some of these obscure characters that he talked about for some people, um, it makes them pick up the books. I hope. I'm hoping like this right here, Grant Morrison's Batman with Frank Quitely. Is it Quitely or Quietly? I don't know. Or could either way. I don't know. It makes people like some. This might be the first time people realize that Batman has a son, Damon Wayne, and they go pick this book up or they go check it out from the library. Um, the fact that he mentioned the Authority, when he said the Authority, my mind was blown. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Hmm.
So the idea that he's going to go and make this a movie, like, so I'm hoping that the crossover, and I'm hoping that Warner Brothers realizes that in order to that, and as you're making these movies, these properties, in order to not just sell tickets to the movies, you need to grow new comic readers. You need to grow new comic fans. So
Hmm.
I'm hoping that they make an effort to get people, hey, did you like this? Go check out this comic. Go check out this comic. Now, it doesn't bode well considering on Twitter, Frank Quietly or Quitly found out they're making the Authority movie the same time we did. And he was the artist for this. That
I
doesn't
mean,
bode
that kind
well.
of happens.
That happens and it doesn't bode well. So, but I do hope that going forward, we do make a push to get people involved in the comics, to get people to say, hey, Superman Legacy is coming out. Here's some of the greatest Superman stories ever told. Like when Frank James Gunn was tweeting out and everybody was hanging on his every word, he was tweeting out Kingdom Come, and people were like, "Oh my gosh!"
Hmm.
I'm hoping people pick up the comics. That's because I'm hoping these are good. I'm gonna see them regardless. I saw Black Adam, and I can't. It can't get worse than Black Adam for me.
Yeah, but you didn't see that in theaters.
I did not.
Yeah.
Thank you, kids, for making me not have to see that in theaters. Because I'm telling you right now, if I'd have paid money, I'd have been mad. Rock, friend of the show, good
I
job.
mean, you were mad and you didn't pay money.
That's my point. Imagine if I had paid
So
money.
yeah.
Imagine if I had paid money, son.
Imagine if you had paid money indeed. With that, folks, we're out. We've been going a little over an hour. We
hour and
gave you
four
what we
minutes.
had. This will, I don't know when this is gonna go. Who knows when this is gonna go? But it'll be
I can
fun to
go
be
all
with
night,
to see.
son.
Fantastic.
That's kind of
Like,
lane
comment,
I ain't.
subscribe for Leroy and his machismo, I guess.
Hey,
Follow
hey, hey.
us. Huh?
I really want people to comment on this one. I really want to talk to people about the comics about this. So,
Well, I mean, you just said we had to tape it. If you had done live, you could have done a live chat.
nah, man, I can't. I got stuff to do. I may have to take a trip.
There we go. All right. Follow us. We trying YouTube, Facebook. We trying y'all. Twitter, Instagram, Twitch. That's it for us. We'll put this up sometime. Y'all see it. Who knows when y'all see it? We out. Peace.